This video is based on a recent edition of Golazzo, the totally Italian football show with James Richardson, a podcast telling the most memorable tales of Italian football history. In 1987, AC Milan were at an uncertain point in their history. They hadn't won a trophy of note in nearly a decade, and after being taken over by Silvio Berlusconi, they had appointed Arrigo Sacchi, a former shoe salesman with little pedigree, as a coach. But Berlusconi also recruited three of the greatest players in the club's history: Ruud Gullit, Frank Rijkaard, and Marco van Basten. The three Dutchmen, known collectively as Tre Tulipiani, formed the core of a side that would dominate not only Italy, but Europe as well. Milan's image changed with Berlusconi's arrival. After acquiring the debt-ridden club in February 1986, he announced a new era in flamboyant fashion. On a July morning, with Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries booming out through loudspeakers, 3 helicopters descended from the skies and landed at a local stadium in front of 10,000 Milan supporters. Out stepped the club directors, the coaches, the first-team squad, and of course, the charismatic new owner. Things were about to be different. Earlier in the decade, the club had become an unlikely home for British players. Joe Jordan, Luther Blissett, Ray Wilkins and Mark Hateley had all worn the black and red. Hateley with some distinction, but 1 year after Berlusconi had descended from the skies, Milan's identity was due an upgrade. Van Basten and Gullit arrived together in the summer of 1987. Gullit cost a world record fee of around £6 million from PSV Eindhoven, while Van Basten, despite a remarkable 128 league goals in 133 games with Ajax, was a relative bargain at £1 million. Now, Gullit was an instant star, playing in most positions on the pitch, smiling his way through his first season, and even playing in front of 3,000 people with his reggae band, Revelation Time. Van Basten's impact was not quite as immediate, only managing 11 games in an injury-scuppered season. But he did provide one crucial moment, scoring the decisive goal in the season's decisive match, the third in a 3-2 win over Diego Maradona's Napoli, which would ultimately clinch the 87-88 Serie A title. That summer, Van Basten and Gullit would immortalise themselves with their national team, and they returned to Milan with another member of that Euro 88 winning Dutch side. Rijkaard was signed from Sporting in Portugal, a sale so unpopular with the Lisbon club fans that they surrounded the hotel where the transfer negotiations were taking place. Upon his arrival, he moved seamlessly into midfield, in front of a central defensive partnership of Franco Baresi and Alessandro Costacurta. The season would feature perhaps the two defining games of that era for Milan, in the latter stages of the European Cup. In the semi-final, they would destroy a brilliant Real Madrid side 5-0 in the second leg, the fourth goal seeing all three Dutchmen combine in a single moment that summed up their brilliance perfectly. And then, in the final, Gullit and Van Basten shared the goals as Milan battered Steaua Bucharest 4-0. They were 3-0 up inside 38 minutes, completing the scoring just after half-time, and they could have easily won by 10. And they retained the trophy the following season, a Rijkaard goal enough to defeat Sven-Göran Eriksson's Benfica in the final. With 5 goals between them in the 2 victorious European Cup finals, the Dutchmen had already established their legend status at San Siro. The team was dubbed Gli Immortali, the Immortals. And to prove the point, in both 1988 and 1989, Milan had the top 3 players in the Ballon d'Or voting. The 3 Dutchmen, and then Baresi sandwiched by Van Basten and Rijkaard. In 1991, Sacchi departed for the Italian national team. But under Fabio Capello, Milan and the Dutchmen had probably their greatest ever season. They went unbeaten throughout the campaign, scoring 74 goals and winning the Scudetto by 8 points. And this in a Serie A that only awarded 2 points for a win. It's no coincidence that this was the only season that Gullit, Rijkaard and Van Basten were all consistently fit. Van Basten in particular was untouchable, scoring 25 goals in 31 games, in a division notorious for its defensive standards. And it would also be the last time that all three were together for any significant period. By the 1992-93 season, Milan had spent big on new talent, including Dejan Savicevic, Zvonimir Boban and Jean-Pierre Papin. And as Serie A still restricted each team to only 3 foreigners in any one lineup, It meant that someone had to be left out, and that was most often Gullit. It would cause him to frequently clash with Capello, and in 1993, having been omitted from the squad for the Champions League final, and with long-term concerns about a knee injury, Gullit was allowed to leave on loan to Sampdoria. The same year, Rijkaard departed for a sentimental return to Ajax, where he would mentor the great generation of talent that would win the 1995 Champions League. But for Van Basten, the end of his time at Milan would be more tragic, and would have its legacy in an ankle injury which dated back to his time at Ajax and which had worsened because of his determination to play through its resulting pain. In December of 1992, the day after collecting his third Ballon d'Or, Van Basten ignored Milan's advice and chose to have surgery. The result was the worsening of the condition. He would have a 22-screw frame fitted around his ankle, and within 6 months, his career would be over at just 28. Now, he would eventually announce his retirement in 1995, but his last game was the 1993 Champions League final against Marseille, and it was a harrowing sight. An uncharacteristically sentimental selection from Capello allowed Van Basten to limp around, clearly unfit, in a game that Milan would lose 1-0. He appeared at the San Siro one more time, during a pre-season friendly, when even Capello was in tears. "I felt like I was at my own funeral," said Van Basten. Gullit, Rijkaard and Van Basten were together at Milan for 5 years, and only really consistently performed together for one full season. But their legacy extends beyond just that. They will be forever immortal, as the key men in perhaps the greatest club team that we've ever seen. Golazzo, the totally Italian football show with James Richardson, is a podcast celebrating the greatest stories from Italian football history. Jimbo, along with the Athletic Serie A correspondent James Horncastle and ESPN senior writer Gabriele Marcotti, explore the legends, myths and occasional truths of Italian football, from the best teams, the greatest heroes, the most notorious villains and the biggest scandals. In the past, the podcast has told the stories of Francesco Totti, Roberto Baggio, Arrigo Sacchi, Gianluca Vialli and Gianfranco Zola. It's explored how Silvio Berlusconi transformed Milan into the greatest team of the 80s and 90s, the extraordinary antics of the Lazio team from the 1970s that included far-right politics and armed robbery, and Il Trio Magico, the Juventus team of the 1950s and 60s led by John Charles. The whole archive of Golazzo podcasts are available to download for free wherever you get your podcasts, and the episode on Milan's 3 Dutchmen can be listened to ad-free via The Athletic.